Good morning, students. Yesterday we saw that how germ layers are forming in an embryo. Today we are going to see how these germ layers are converting into different organs. And the topic that we are going to discuss is organogenesis. The name is suggesting organogenesis is formation of organs. Formation of basically tissues and organs. How these tissues and organs are going to form? These are derived from the three germ layers. And what is happening in these three germ layers? For a quick reason, we are having three germ layers: ectoderm, mesoderm and endoderm. In gastrulation, we saw that endoderm is formed first, then mesoderm, and at the last the ectoderm is going to form. Now, these three germ layers, what is happening basically is they are undergoing differentiation and specialization of cells takes place. This differentiation and specialization of cells is leading to the formation of tissues and organs. Here two situations can be there. These cells are going to stay localized at one specific place and they are going to form the tissues and organs on that place also, or there can be possibility that a single layer or a single cell or group of cells going to migrate to another place, and at this new location they can form a new tissue or organ. Both the situations can be possible. Always remember, this differentiation and specialization always takes place in a sequential manner. That means the formation of organs and tissues are following a sequence. First some of the organs are going to form, later some another organs are going to form. Initially they are present in their simple form, and as the embryonic development is taking place, they are converting into their original complex form. This is how organogenesis is taking place. Now what is happening? We are having gastrula, and this gastrula is present with three embryonic germ layers. Now these embryonic germ layers are starting the process of organogenesis. So when this embryo is growing in different trimesters, we are able to see different type of organs. How these organs are visible? In the first month of pregnancy, a simple heart is developed, and the sound of this simple heart can be easily heard by stethoscope, and it is the first sign of to see that our embryo is growing in the womb. In the second month, there is development of another structures like limbs are going to initiate, the limb initials are starting. There is development of rudimentary eye, simple eye structures are appearing. Along with these structures, some other structures are also present in this stage of embryonic development, that are tail and pharyngeal pouches. I said tail and pharyngeal pouches are present at embryo stage, but when a baby is born, tail is absent and pharyngeal pouches are also absent. So what is happening here? These are representing our ancestral history. This is showing the ancestral history of human beings, from which type of organisms they have evolved, and this can be explained by one simple sentence, that is ontogeny repeats phylogeny. These quotes are basically saying that in our life cycle, ontogeny means life cycle. In our life cycle, we are going to repeat or we are going to represent our ancestral history. This is what we are doing. At embryonic stage, we are having tail and pharyngeal pouches, which are part of our ancestral history. But when this embryo is going to mature into a fetus and further into a fully developed unborn baby, all these structures will vanish and they will not be present. That's why I am removing over here. These will not be present in the fully grown fetus. At the end of almost second trimester, the embryo has developed all the important organs. And now this embryo is called fetus. When organs are forming, it is known as, now no more we are calling it as embryo, we are saying it is a fetus. Trimester will be the 9 months of pregnancy period is divided into 3 trimesters, and each trimester is made up of, or it consists of 3 months. Next, at the end of third trimester, this fetus is completely developing into a unborn baby that is having all the structures, all organs that are present in a human being. And now birth of this unborn baby takes place at the end of third trimester. So in a sequential manner the organs are going to form, and these organs are going to form from the germ layers. Means the fate of the germ layers is already determined, that which germ layer is going to give part to which structure of the, give rise to which structure of the body. So let's see what are the different fates of these 3 germ layers. Fate of germ layers. We are having 3 germ layers: ectoderm, we are having mesoderm and endoderm. What they are giving rise to? The ectoderm is responsible for the formation of epidermis of our skin. Epidermis is the outer layer of our skin that is formed by ectoderm. It also leads to the formation of gut. Gut is our alimentary canal, our digestive system. This ectoderm is not going to form the complete gut region, the complete alimentary canal, but it is forming the foregut and hindgut only. The starting parts and the end parts of our alimentary canal will be formed by ectoderm. Next structure that is formed by ectoderm is our nervous system. Means brain and spinal cord. They have arisen from ectoderm. Another structure is, there is 2 parts. Adrenal, we have studied different type of glands. So adrenal gland is there, that is having adrenal medulla and adrenal cortex region. The adrenal medulla region, that is formed by ectoderm. And in the same way, this ectoderm is forming some part of the pituitary gland. Basically the intermediate pituitary and posterior lobe of pituitary. These are again formed by the ectoderm. Other structures that are coming from these ectoderm are our inner ears, is also formed by ectoderm. Now some of the structures are formed from mesoderm. Like this mesoderm is forming the dermis. That means the layer of the skin that is present below this epidermis, that will be formed by this mesoderm. It is going to form most of the muscles. Again they are mesodermal in origin, going to form connective tissues of our body. It is going to form parts of excretory system. Now it is important to know, this mesoderm is not forming all the parts of our excretory system, but some of the parts, some of the important parts like kidney are formed by this mesoderm. Urinary bladder will not be formed by the part of excretory system is urinary bladder also, but that is not derived from the mesoderm. Kidney are basically mesodermal in origin. And our circulatory system, is comprises of the important organ of our circulatory system, that is heart. Then we are having blood cells, we are having blood vessels, lymph vessels are also part of our circulatory system. So all these structures are coming from mesoderm. Let's see some of the important structures that are coming from endoderm. This endoderm is also giving rise to gut portion. So half of the gut portion is coming, region is coming from ectoderm. Some part of the gut is coming from endoderm. Basically, pharynx to colon region is coming from the endoderm. It is derived from endoderm. This endoderm is responsible for formation of most of the important glands of our body. For example, gastric glands, most of the glands that are present in our digestive system, intestinal glands, there is formation of liver, pancreas, pancreatic glands. This is how different type of glands are going to be derived from this endoderm. Another structures that are derived from the endoderm are middle ear, that is also derived from the endoderm. So this is how different portions of the body, different parts of the body are derived. They are determined to be derived from different germ layers. You will find all these written in different books, that what is the fate of different germ layers that are formed during the time of gastrulation. Now let's discuss the extra embryonic membranes. These extra embryonic membranes are also formed along with the embryo, and they are going to develop and increase in their size as the embryo is developing and increasing its size. Why they are known as extra embryonic membrane? Simple reason is they are present outside the embryo. They are not directly taking part in the formation of embryo or development of embryo. They are helping the embryo in some of the manners. That's why we are calling them as extra embryonic membranes. Means they are helping the embryo in its development. All the extra embryonic membranes which we are going to discuss, they are derived from the trophoblast, or we can say trophoectoderm. These are derived from the outermost layer of the cells, which are trophoblast. Basically 4 extra embryonic membranes are present, and these are yolk sac, allantois is there, amnion and chorion. So in a diagram we will see how these membranes are present, what is their location, and what different type of functions they are performing. When we will draw a diagram, we will see these all membranes, they are surrounded by different germ layers. Almost all are surrounded by 2 germ layers. One germ layer they are going to surround internally, and from one germ layer they are going to surround externally. So let's see how all these extra embryonic membranes are present. See, this is a developing embryo. This developing embryo is present. Now, this developing embryo, the lower part of this developing embryo is giving rise to a sac or pouch-like structure like this way. And this pouch-like structure is known as yolk sac. So where yolk sac is present on the lower side of the embryo. If we talk about human beings, this yolk sac is very reduced in size and it is not actually containing the yolk, but it is filled with the fluid. Means size of the yolk sac is very small and the name is yolk sac, but it is not actually filled with yolk. The reason behind this is in other organisms like birds and reptiles, the development of embryo is completely depending upon the yolk that is present inside the egg. But in humans or in mammals, that is not the case. The complete development is dependent upon the mother. That's why there is no requirement of yolk, and if there is no requirement of yolk, the size of yolk sac is reduced. This yolk sac, when we studied or when we saw that how the germ layers were forming, we saw that when primary yolk sac was there, this primary yolk sac, it was surrounded by two membranes. Later on, splitting of mesoderm took place, and after the splitting of mesoderm, the size of primary yolk sac reduced and it converted into secondary yolk sac. And this secondary yolk sac is surrounded by two membranes. The inner membrane that is surrounding this yolk sac is the endoderm, and the outer membrane that is surrounding this yolk sac, this outer one is the mesoderm. So yolk sac is surrounded by two membranes. The inner one is the endoderm and the outer one is the mesoderm. From this lower portion of the embryo, one more structure is arising near to the yolk sac, and that is highly reduced. Also reduced than the yolk sac, and this structure is known as allantois. Is known as allantois. This allantois is just like the yolk sac. Internally it is surrounded by endoderm and externally it is surrounded by mesoderm. This external one is mesoderm and the internal layer is endoderm. What this allantois is doing? Function of allantois is it is functioning as a urinary bladder. That means it is going to store it is used for the purpose of storage of the waste. Another important structure that is present above the embryo, like this way. This structure is the amnion. And this amnion is enclosing a cavity that is known as amniotic cavity, and inside this amniotic cavity a fluid is flowing, that is amniotic fluid. This amniotic cavity or amnion is growing with the growing embryo. Embryo is continuously growing in the size. Along with this embryo, this amnion is also growing, and this amnion is going to surround the complete embryo inside it. It is enclosing the whole embryo. Here amniotic fluid is present, and along with this amniotic fluid, there are some cells present inside it, which are of fetal origin. Some of the fetal cells or some of the cells of the embryo are present in this amniotic fluid, and these cells are used for some purposes. This process is known as amniocentesis. What happens? The doctors, with the help of a very pointed needle, they are going to suck some amount of amnion inside this needle, amniotic fluid inside this needle. Along with this fluid, the cells are also going to come, and these cells will be helpful in prenatal sex determination, whether the embryo is going to develop into a male or female. And another is it is used to find out various chromosomal abnormalities. At this growing state, if the embryo is suffering from any chromosomal abnormality, that can be found out by this amniotic fluid. So this is how this amniotic fluid can be used. How this amniotic fluid is helpful for this embryo? This amniotic fluid is acting as a cushion for this embryo. So it is basically preventing the pressure of the mother organs on the embryo. It is also providing it fluid medium. That means the embryo can easily move inside this fluid medium. So movement of embryo is facilitated by this amniotic fluid. This amniotic fluid is also providing nourishment to this developing embryo. Plus, if mother falls, there are less chances of injury to the embryo because of the presence of this amniotic fluid. This is how this amniotic fluid is helpful. Now, the inner membrane of this amniotic fluid is the ectoderm. And this ectoderm is surrounded from the outside by mesoderm. So over here mesoderm is present. This is the third extraembryonic membrane. Now this whole structure is covered by the fourth extraembryonic membrane, that is known as chorion. This is how this structure is covered by chorion. The chorion, the outer membrane of this is chorion. The outer layer of chorion is made up of trophoblast, and the inner layer of this chorion is made up of mesoderm. This is how mesoderm is present. So internally it is surrounded by mesoderm. Now this portion, the portion of the embryo that is present close to the uterus, here uterus lining is present, endometrium will be present. This portion is giving rise to finger-like projections that are moving deeply inside the endometrium, and these finger-like projections are known as chorionic villi. Chorionic villi. Villi are increasing the surface area for the absorption. Here endometrium of the mother is present. And these villi are helping in the absorption of nourishment from this endometrium. Now, there is formation of the embryo is attached with this portion with the help of a cord-like structure, that is umbilical cord. And this umbilical cord is arising from the stalk of this yolk sac and allantois. And this umbilical cord is having supply of various blood vessels and nerves that are helping in the exchange of material between the mother and the fetus. Let's see a structure of uterus, that how this whole structure is basically present inside the uterus. How uterus is going to accommodate it inside it. This is the female reproductive system, and I am only drawing the uterus part to show the presence. This is the uterus region. The endometrium has already become thick. There is thickening of endometrium, and this endometrium is having huge blood supply, plus it is leading to various secretions that are helping in the development of embryo. This portion is also covered by a endometrium. Now, Over here the embryo is present. The developing embryo is present in this manner. This is how the embryo is present. This portion will be having the chronic villi for the absorption of nutrients. That means here villi like structures are present, and this is the outer membrane, that is chorion, that is surrounding the complete structure. Then there is a, I told there is a stalk like structure, or you can say there is a cord like structure that is forming. This is how the cord like structure is forming. And this cord like structure is forming from the stalk of yolk sac and allantois, and this is finally moving to the chorionic villi, and there will be supply of blood vessels and nerves, and this is combining with this end is attached with the chorionic villi, and this opposite end is attached with the fetus, or you can say the developing embryo. Now another membrane surrounding here is the amnion. So this is here how the amnion is present. Let me label all this part. This is the chorion region. This is the amnion. This amnion has completely surrounded the embryo, and amniotic fluid is filled in this region. This is the developing embryo. This is the uterus. Here endometrium is present. Endometrium of uterus is present. This structure is the yolk sac, allantois. This cord which is visible to us is umbilical cord, and with the help of this umbilical cord the embryo is attached with the endometrium. These finger-like projections are chronic villi, and these chronic villi are going to enter deep inside the endometrium for the absorption of nourishment. This is how the whole structure is present. Now there is formation of placenta this time period. Placenta, what placenta is going to do? Placenta is going to act as a medium through which the blood of the mother and blood of the fetus are coming in close contact with each other, and there will be exchange of different type of materials that are going to take place with the help of this placenta. So let's see how placenta formation is going to take place. Before seeing placenta formation, we need to understand one thing, that when embryo is implanted in the uterus, the endometrium of the uterus is undergoing some specific type of changes and modifications, and these changes and modifications in the endometrium is known as decidua. So what decidua is? Decidua simply means that after implantation of embryo in the uterus, there will be modifications in the endometrium of uterus, and now it is known as decidua. This decidua is divided into segments, different parts. Let's see how different type of decidua are present. Now we say that this is the uterus lining, endometrium is here, and inside the endometrium smooth muscles are present that we are calling the myometrium will be present over here, and here the whole structure is developing and chorionic villi are forming. This is how the chorionic villi are forming. So this is over here the embryo is present, umbilical cord will be present, yolk sac and allantois are present. Now this portion, the chorionic villi that are entering inside the endometrium, and this portion of endometrium that is having the chorionic villi, that is known as decidua basalis. Means when we'll talk about placenta formation, this region is going to take part in the formation of placenta, that is decidua basalis part. The other part of this endometrium is going to surround, this part of the endometrium is going to surround the complete embryonic structure, complete embryo, and that is known as decidua capsularis. That means what is happening, the whole embryo, it has embedded itself completely inside the endometrium, and the endometrium has surrounded this embryo. So this surrounded region is the decidua capsularis, and the remaining part of the endometrium, other than all this portion, other than this placenta formation part and this surrounded part, the remaining part of the endometrium will be decidua parietalis. So this is how the three decidua are present. The important one is this portion is leading to the formation of placenta. Now this portion is containing two parts. Let's see how placenta formation is taking place. First, what is placenta? Placenta is simply the medium through which the mother is going in contact, or the mother blood is coming close in contact with the fetus, and they are going to exchange the materials. It can be respiratory gases, can be food material, it can be nitrogenous waste. So placenta is not only formed by the fetus, or it is not only formed by the mother. There is contribution of both fetus as well as mother. This chorion part of the fetus is going to form chorionic villi, and these chorionic villi are only coming in contact with the endometrium, or you can say they are taking part in the placenta formation. So this placenta is having one fetal placenta, the fetal part, that is the chorionic part, chorion, and second one is this decidua basalis is giving rise to placenta formation. So another one be the maternal placenta. So placenta is made up of two parts. Half of the portion is coming from the fetus and half of the portion is coming from the mother, and these are coming in contact with each other. Here blood vessels are present, and this structure is also supplied with various blood arteries and veins. So these chorionic villi are leading to the increase in the surface area, and through these structures there is absorption or exchange of material that is going to take place between mother and fetus. Now what will be the function, or what different exchanges are taking place with the help of placenta? Before going to this, always remember one thing. Placenta is leading to close contact between maternal and fetal blood, but I never said that they are coming in direct contact with each other. That means the maternal blood and fetal blood, they never come in direct contact with each other. They are only present at a close connection with each other, and simply by the process of diffusion the movement of substances will take place. The first thing that is going to diffuse is food products. From the mother blood, from the maternal blood, the food products will be absorbed by the chorionic villi and they will be passed on to the embryo with the help of umbilical cord. Second thing is respiratory gases. O2 and CO2. From the mother blood, O2 is going to diffuse into the embryo through different structures, and the embryo is continuously generating CO2 that will be transferred to the mother's blood. So this is how exchange of gases are taking place between maternal and fetal blood. Another thing is exchange of nitrogenous waste. Fetus is continuously developing waste, and this waste will be again through arteries, blood vessels, it is going to enter into the endometrium, and finally it will be removed out with the help of mother's body, mother's excretory system. So at the time of pregnancy, the mother excretory waste is containing the nitrogenous waste that is produced inside the body of the mother, as well as the nitrogenous waste that is produced by the fetus. Another important exchange takes place is of hormones. The placenta is going to produce different type of hormones like progesterone, estrogen. When we talked about the ovary and development of follicles, I told you that corpus luteum is going to produce progesterone, and this progesterone is responsible for maintaining pregnancy. After formation of placenta, some level of progesterone is secreted by placenta also, and this hormone will be transferred to the fetus. Placenta is also going to release or secrete estrogen. Other than this is going to secrete another hormone, that is human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, and this human chorionic gonadotropin hormone is detected in the urine of a pregnant lady, and this basically it gives a simple idea, or you can say it proves that a female is pregnant. That means presence of HCG is the sign of pregnancy. Another important hormone is human parietal lactogen. Lactogen simply means it is going to activate the mammary glands for the secretion of milk. So these are some of the hormones that are secreted by the placenta, and these are going to enter into the developing embryo. Now this placenta is also acting as a barrier. Means there are some of the substances which are, some of the chemicals which can pass from the mother to the fetus, and these chemical substances are known as teratogens. These teratogens are including various chemicals like nicotine that is present in coffee, or you can say basically smoking. When a mother is doing smoking, the harmful chemical substances, they can pass the placenta and they can enter into the developing embryo and fetus, and they are going to harm the fetus. Some of the addictive drugs like cocaine, heroin, they are also able to cross the placenta and reach the fetus, which is leading to some of the harmful effects on the health of fetus. So pregnant women are also advised, always advised, to not take such type of things when they are pregnant, because that is harming the health of the fetus. This is how placenta formation is taking place. In our next class, we will see how parturition, birth of a newborn baby, is taking place.